Now, restaurant floors get extremely dirty. There's a lot of food that falls on the ground in the back by the grill. There's a lot of grease that comes out of the fryers. And people are standing and walking back and forth on the line back there, picking up dirt and grime on their shoes. Then when they come into the front of house to deliver the food to the table, they're taking all of that grease with them. And so what happens is the floors begin to get really dull and greasy. Now your floors are the largest flat surface in a facility. And so when it gets dull and greasy, it really impacts the environment. You might not notice because it's so gradual and it happens so slowly. And nobody's really looking down at the floors. But one of the best ways to improve the environment besides painting and redecorating is going to be to maintaining floors properly, or correcting the issues and really deep cleaning the floor and restoring it to its natural shine. So what I typically do is I get out all of my tools. I bring them all out into the environment that I'm going to be working in. And I go through and I make sure that I have everything set up correctly. I unwind my cables, I set up my mops, I fill up my mop buckets, I put my buffer together and choose the correct pad that I'm going to be using. I make sure that I have my extension cord hooked up to my vacuum. I check all the plugs that I'm going to be using, making sure that I have power. And I get everything set up because I don't want to get into a situation where I have a whole bunch of water on the ground and no way to vacuum it back up. So I make sure that I have everything squared away before I even begin. Then what I do is, once the mop buckets are completely filled with water, I pour in a lot of degreaser. This is the product I like to use. It's called Sunburst. I get this at the restaurant supply company in my area. I think this is about $10 for a gallon. This is specifically made for fats and oils. So this is a good fat and grease remover. You have to be careful. This stuff will actually take the flesh right off of your hands if you're not using gloves and you're working with it on your hands. So you want to be a little bit careful with that. Then what I like to do is I pick out the area that I'm going to work on, and I choose the area furthest away from the door, and then I work my way back out to where the exit is. That way I don't have to walk on any of the surfaces that I've just cleaned. So once I pick out the route that I'm going to go, I flood a little area, and I make sure to only do an area that I can clean and get done before it dries. Because if you're working on an area and you bring up all that grease and dirt off the surface of the floor and out of the pores of the cement, well, if that dries before you can actually get it all mopped up and clean, then you're gonna have to redo the entire process. So I pick a little area that I'm capable of getting done before it dries. And then I flood that entire area with this water with degreaser in it. I flood that and I let it start working and break down the grease. And then I grab my buffer right here and I choose the correct pad that I want to use for the environment. I have a whole bunch of different color pads, one for every occasion. If the floor is really greasy, I like to pick out something that's highly aggressive. I got these purple pads here. These are the most aggressive pads that I've found. I'll flood the floor with this degreaser, and then I'll start scrubbing it with my buffing machine. That lifts all the grease and oils up and out of the ground. Once you completely clean the floor, you have all this grease that you're dealing with, and you have to figure out how to get that out of the environment. Now, you could mop it up, but the most effective way to do it is actually to have a big wet vac and to suck it all up. You could use a shop vac if that's the only thing that you have available and you're not interested in making any big purchases. But I have this big wet vac here, and I use this wet vac and I push it around on all this grease. Now this wet vac can hold 20 gallons of water, and so I don't really have to stop and empty it very often depending on the size of the job, and it sucks the water up very quickly, almost as fast as I can walk. So I push this around and I suck up all of this dirty sludge. Then there's going to be a little bit of remaining water on the ground, and I have to figure out how to get rid of that. And so what I like to do is use something like this, a daily floor care cleaner. This is by a company called MultiClean. A lot of these products are going to be regional, and you might not be able to get them where you live, but just a regular floor cleaner is really nice because it has a neutral pH, and it will get the pH levels back to what it needs to be so that the wax can adhere to the floor properly. So I'll go around and I'll mop the floor with this floor cleaner just to pick up any of the grease that's sitting on the surface. Once I've completely mopped the area and it's totally clean, and I let it dry, and that's when I start moving on to the next area and I do the whole process over. It's interesting, when you walk through a facility, your feet pick up dirt from the outside, and they stick onto your shoes. And so when you walk through a building, that dirt will get stuck in any grease that's on the floor. And so you have all this grease on the surface and then dirt sticking to it, and it gets brown and dirty and disgusting, which then attracts more grease, and then it starts piling up and up and up. And so you want to get rid of this as quickly as possible. So if you're ever in a restaurant and you feel like your feet are sticking, you can look down and see how shiny and how clean is this floor. If you notice any big black marks or streaks or any black buildup around the edges of the floor, then you know their floor is not being maintained properly. And this is my method that I use to get rid of that and to make a restaurant floor look brand new. I don't recommend that you do this on your own if you've never done it before, because it could be a very big job. It could take many, many hours. And if you mess up on one of the first steps, you're not going to know you made that mistake until the very end of the project, and then you might have to start all over again. And so if you're on a deadline, say the restaurant closes around midnight and you have to get it done before 8 in the morning when they open, you can't get 6 hours into this job, realize you made a mistake, and then start all over again. There just isn't enough time, and there won't be enough energy to redo it within that time period. So you really want to have a professional. You want somebody that really knows what they're doing. And if you own a cleaning company and you want to add this to your services, I'd highly recommend working with another janitorial company in order to learn it and learn how to overcome all those little hurdles that you're going to have. This is very easy. It's simple. It's simple work. The way I explained it to you is very clear and concise, and anybody can understand it. The problem comes in is when you're working with different floor types. When you have concrete, VCT, tile, all these different floor types require a little bit different process, and they all have their own little challenges. And then every environment is going to be a little bit different. Sometimes you're going to have a restaurant, sometimes it's going to be a doctor's office, and you need to know how to work in each of these environments. And it's very easy to get yourself in over your head. So you want to make sure to have a lot of practice before you start offering this as a service. I hope this helps you guys. If you want to do what you want, when you want, how you want, for who you want, subscribe to my channel, and we'll see you guys next time.